Hi, friends. I'm Emily Lay, and you're listening to the Simplified podcast. If you're looking to simplify your life and organize your home, then you're in the right place. Every week, I invite you to explore practical ways to organize and automate the complicated parts of life so you can focus on what truly matters most. Well, guys, I don't know how it's even possible, but we are approaching the end of summer. All eyes are on back-to-school season, and if you're anything like me, that means it's time for a fresh start. If you have not purchased your Signature Simplified planner, now is the time. The Signature Simplified planners in our shop at emilylay.com start August 1st. Do you ever start to notice the same idea popping up in your life over and over again? And you go, maybe this is something I should listen to or pay attention to. That's kind of where I am with something right now. A few months ago, I saw a meme on Instagram that stopped me in my tracks. I love a funny meme, but this was not one of those. This was a little more serious. It was an illustrated meme with a bunch of different scenarios on it. A mom soothing the emotions of an upset child. A mom up late at night feeding a kid. A mom organizing holiday parties and making sure backpacks were filled and doing school drop-off and pickup and prepping meals and organizing the home. And on top of all these scenarios was one simple phrase, the unseen load of the default parent. Well, that one got me. It got me so much that I shared it to my stories, and you guys really resonated with it also. Fast forward to a couple weeks ago, I was listening to Jen Hatmaker's podcast, which I do a lot because it is just so good, and she is so wise. And her guest that week was Eve Rodsky, a Harvard law graduate and organizational management guru. Eve was talking about her own pull between being a lawyer to billionaire families, just like Jerry from Succession, and having a fulfilling marriage and welcoming kids into your family and what it takes for everyone to thrive in that situation. Spoiler alert, it's hard. It's hard for everyone. Eve talked about being at work one day and having to pump in the literal broom closet because there was nowhere else for her to go for privacy. She was sore and exhausted. She found herself driving on the freeway in LA on the way to pick up her toddler son from preschool in a car that looked like a bomb had gone off in it when her husband texted her and said, "I'm surprised you forgot the blueberries." And that, you guys, I can't even say that. I can't even say that to you without kind of laughing in my head, even though it's not funny. We have all been there. We've all been in that situation where we have 1,000 things going on and someone says, "I'm so surprised you forgot the blueberries." Well, that was her last straw. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. So much so that she pulled over on the freeway in LA to sob. And if you've ever been on the freeway in LA, you know that that was a big decision to make. I could relate. Just this past weekend, I was feeling that same kind of anxious overwhelm. Right now, as I record this episode, I am one day away from going to Scotland with Brian. We hardly ever go on international trips, let alone trips without the kids. I am so excited to go, but holy cow, I want to leave well. I want to leave our kids feeling okay, and I want our home to look clean and the work feeling like I've met everyone's needs and can come back without my vacation vibes evaporating in a day. But maybe that's a pipe dream. Because this weekend, Caroline needed her uniform for cheer practice. We looked and we looked and we looked throughout her closet, her drawers, under the bed, and nothing. We could not find the thing. And as we went through all of her clothes, I noticed just how much she's not wearing anymore because she's outgrown it. Piles and piles of clothes and socks and shoes on top of the fact that Caroline's been heavily hinting that she is ready for a big girl room, that she doesn't play with dolls and Barbies anymore, which... cue the sobs, moms. I figured I might as well just tackle the overwhelm I'm feeling the best way I know how. I decided I'm just going to go in there and give her room a ruthless declutter. And while we're at it, why don't I just do the same for Brady and Tyler too? So there I was, the Sunday before our trip, surrounded by piles of clothes and shoes to give away, with the Walmart app open to fill in anything my kids needed that they didn't have, like hangers for bigger clothes and toothpaste for the bathroom. My brain is running at 1,000 miles an hour trying to anticipate needs and make these rooms look beautiful and functional for my children. And you guys, I love doing it. Well, let me rephrase. I do not enjoy being in the middle of the mess, but I really enjoy the end result. But you know what? I could never imagine Brian doing something like this. Not in a million years. Would he do it if I asked him? He would. He may have a few things to say about it, but he would do it. He'd help me. But would he do it on his own? No, he would not. It is not his spiritual gift. Moms, how many little things like this make up our days? How much room do these kinds of activities occupy in our brains? This is the unseen load. Some people call it emotional labor. No matter what you call it, I think it's all of these things we do to make sure our families run as smoothly as possible with as much health and happiness as possible. And this role usually falls to the, quote, default parent. Now, hear me when I say this. Being a parent is my joy. It really is. I love getting to care for my creative and silly and courageous kids, but as any parent knows, this is not an easy job, even if you volunteered for it like I did. It's hard. It can feel lonely and exhausting. And can I be honest? Whether it's real or imagined, so much of the time I feel like it's all on me. The way my family functions and how happy and healthy they are depend on how well I can execute my role as a wife and mom. And heads up, for the sake of this episode, I'm going to be speaking a lot from my own experience. And that means I'm speaking from the perspective of a woman who is partnered in a heteronormative relationship. There are so many ways to be a parent, and it looks so different from family to family. You may not see yourself mirrored in exactly the way I talk about it today, but if I can humbly ask, please glean what you can and talk to me in the Instagram post for this episode, because I want to know about your own lived experience and what this looks like for you. Okay, thanks for letting me have that sidebar. Let's get back to it. If we live in a heteronormative family, one with a mom and a dad, we see this a lot. Even if both partners work, there's usually one parent who's the default parent. The one who's at the front lines getting requests for help, who's signing school forms, making appointments, shuttling kids to and fro, kissing the boo-boos, going to the parent-teacher conferences, coming in at night when there's a nightmare. Experts say that for the default parent, even if they have a full-time job, they spend about 80 hours a week taking care of their unseen load. Listen to that again. 80 hours. That's 2 full-time jobs on top of the one you already have. Let that sink in for a minute. So much of this job is invisible to the partner who's never been in the default parent position. And it makes sense, right? Think about your job at work. Do you think your boss knows every single thing you do? Do you think you know every single thing your coworker tackles? No. And if your partner has never been the point person for doctor's appointments, school pickup, or keeping track of food likes and dislikes among multiple children, then how will they know how much work all of it is? I mean, I suppose there's a reason that so many Academy Award winners thank their moms. Moms have been the default parents in these kinds of families for, I guess, forever. Now, we know why this happens. It's centuries and centuries of social conditioning that tell us in heteronormative relationships, women care for the children. Plus, we watched our moms care for us in this way. She brushed our hair. She signed our forms. She got cupcakes ready for the school bake sale. She was the one who'd run to Walmart for glue sticks the night before our big diorama was due. But oh my gosh, this is a hard gig. Feeling the weight of the unseen load is a heavy burden to carry. You know why? Because motherhood isn't exactly a job you can clock out of. And you know what happens when you don't get a break? When you feel like everything is on your back? Resentment, fatigue, burnout. And when those set in, it's so hard to care for anyone, but especially and most importantly, yourself. I'm going to sidebar here and just tell you guys about a little scenario that happened to me not more than a week ago. It is the dead of summer here where we live, which means it is hot. It is busy. Everyone has places they need to go and things they need to do. I just so happen to work from home, which is a privilege and a wonderful gift to our family, and also means that I am here trying to work my full-time job in the middle of the chaos, the beautiful chaos that is summertime with 3 children under the age of 12. I listened to that episode I mentioned to you, Jen Hatmakers, and you have to go listen to it after this episode. It's just so good with Eve Rodsky. And I told Brian, I said, you know what? Little girls who are my age now, when we were little girls, and I'm 40, by the way, when we were little girls, our generation was so fortunate and lucky for people older than us to say, hey, little girls, you can be anything you want when you grow up. Everyone said that to me. My mom, my dad, my teachers, everyone said to me, listen, this was different when I was young, but for you, young Emily, you can be anything you want when you grow up. You can be an astronaut. You can be a marine biologist. You can be a teacher. You can be president of the United States. You can be an entrepreneur. And we took it and we ran with it, right? But you know what didn't happen? Those same people weren't telling, and again, we're talking about heteronormative relationships here, but they did not tell the little boys of the world, hey, the little girls of the world, they're not going to solely, every single one of them, be solely focused on taking care of the family. They are going to be astronauts, and they are going to be president, and they're going to be entrepreneurs and authors and what have you. And so you are going to have to take on some of the default load that usually goes to women. And Brian looked at me and he was like, yeah, you're right. Nobody told me that. Like, nobody got everybody else ready. Anyway, I digress. I just had to say that because I think about it often that I was very fortunate to be raised in a family where my dad was super, super involved, very proactive. But again, my mom was the default parent. She was home with us in the summer times. She had the more flexible schedule. She was a teacher, so it was as flexible as that got, but she was the default parent, as it is in many, many, many families. So I say all of that to tell you that this is something we all deal with. You're not alone. I deal with it. I have dealt with the burnout of it as recent as last week. Now, I think you can all probably relate to this feeling. And I think it's important for us to talk about what we do with it, right? Maybe you felt like this before. So often, like I said, the women in the default parent mode who are struggling have also struggled with something else I'm very familiar with, perfectionism and people pleasing. We want so badly to do a good job for our families. Most of us watched our moms do such an extraordinary job caring for us. And like I said, that was the case for my mom. But the thing is, you saw your mom through the lens of a child. That's the way you were supposed to see her. But sometimes it's hard to remember that your mother, as wonderful as she is, isn't Superwoman. She's a human being. And there were days that were so hard for her. She didn't show you everything she struggled with because she was an adult and you were a child, and that wasn't a burden you were supposed to carry. But I say this to normalize the way that you might be feeling right now, that I have felt recently. Your mom probably felt the same way too at some point. And newsflash, I know you already know this, but not only is this kind of scenario not good for the default parent, it's not good for the other partner, and it's not good for the kids. Because being the non-default parent can lead to things like emotional disconnection and distance from the default parent, aka the person who is most likely their partner. And when you're not involved as much in parenting your kids, understandably, that leads to fewer connections with your kids. Again, this is why moms are always thanked at the Academy Awards. And of course, the kids have to deal with the fallout of this dynamic as well. This dynamic they cannot choose. They lose out on potential additional connection with the default parent. Plus, their default parent is fatigued and frustrated. To me, this doesn't sound like a family who is flourishing the way they could. But do you know what, you guys? Here is the good news. It does not have to be this way. We create our own family culture. These are learned behaviors. But the good news is we can unlearn them too. It takes two partners to create a family culture. And together, you can start to make tweaks to this dynamic so that all of you can flourish. And if it sounds like I'm being really pointed about this, it's because we just had this conversation in my house. God love Brian Lay. He is a very involved dad. He helps out a ton with all the things. But does that change the fact that he is not the default parent? It does not. Is this going to be easy? No. Is this going to happen quickly? It might not. But if you're feeling stuck in a dynamic that isn't working, I first want to tell you that I see you. Oh my gosh, do I see you? If you are in my office right now, I would give you a hug. I would pat you on the head and I would tell you it's going to be okay. Me and you, and I'll be telling myself that too, it's going to be okay. And I know that what you're carrying is so hard, but stay with me for the next few minutes. I want you to think about if the things I talk about next might work for you and your partner. They very well might. They're working here. Because here's the thing. I don't think anyone wakes up and goes, I want to be a crappy parent today. Nobody says that. Nobody. But a lot of people are still learning what it means to be a good one. I know I am. And what I've learned is that in order for our family to flourish, Brian and I need to be on the same page. We don't need to do everything the same, but we need to share a vision for the kind of family we want to have and how to execute that vision. We talk openly and frequently, and we hold each other accountable, and we trust each other. That does not mean we don't often disagree. We do, but we work through it.
The Simplified podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we are faced with tough choices, and the path forward isn't always clear. That has been the case for me dozens of times. What should I major in? Is he the one? Should I take that job? Should we keep trying in our IVF journey? What does it mean to be a good mom? Whether you're dealing with decisions around career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life, so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/simplified today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/simplified. This year, I have been trying to find ways to make dinners that make us feel great without having to spend a lot of time or brain power in the kitchen. And that, my dear friends, is why I'm the world's biggest fan of Green Chef. Green Chef helps you eat clean the easy way with recipes that help support your wellness goals while delivering fresh, delicious flavors. You can choose from recipes featuring lean proteins like turkey, sockeye salmon, scallops, and shrimp, along with certified organic fruits and veggies, cage-free eggs, and lots of whole grains. Listen, if you put just about anything in a bowl, I will devour it. We have been loving the Baja shrimp with cauliflower rice and chipotle aioli, and also the chicken burrito bowls with queso. It's literally like having Chipotle at my house without having to get in the car and go to Chipotle. So save time and feel your best this summer with Green Chef. Go to greenchef.com/simplified50 and use code simplified50 to get 50% off plus free shipping. One more time, go to greenchef.com/simplified50 and use code simplified50 to get 50% off plus free shipping. Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating clean.
You guys know I love a system. These steps are not a prescribed 1, 2, 3, our family is problem-free method. But maybe these ideas might get your gears turning about how you can make the division of labor a little more equitable and a whole lot lighter for you. Number 1, check in with yourself. How are you feeling right now? If you're burned out, what has led you here? This is where I've found doing a brain dump and the prep work in the Simplified Planner is super helpful. Not only do you get your feelings out, but you can see everything on paper in front of you. And like we talked about way back in episode 82, writing something down works a different part of your brain, a helpful part, one connected to long-term memory. You do some good thinking when you write things down. And anecdotally speaking, writing things down helps me feel calmer and helps me breathe easier. My burden doesn't feel so heavy. Even if I haven't changed anything yet, I think that's a win. Number 2, talk to your partner about your experience. Listen, I know this is tricky. I know you want to do everything perfectly. I know sometimes you just want to be like a cactus, AKA you don't need much and you can withstand just about everything. But if you're feeling burned out, then guess what? Even if you're a cactus, you start running out of water. You're in SOS mode. You need some help, period. It's time to talk to your partner about what's going on with you, about what you're thinking and feeling. And chances are, if you're burned out, they probably know something's up with you. They might just not know what. The where and when of this conversation can be a little tricky. When you're at the point of burnout, it's hard not to feel like you're on the edge. This is when doing a brain dump first can feel a little helpful. It can help you organize your thoughts and feelings so you not only feel a little calmer when you talk to your partner, but you can have some tangible suggestions and possible solutions. That can go a long way in remembering that you two are partners in parenthood. And let me also just insert here that when I had this conversation with Brian recently, I had to begin the conversation by diffusing it and saying, listen, this is not an attack on you and how much you do or don't do around here. This is about the unseen load of the default parent. Use that phrase because it helped Brian understand that this was not like an attack on what he is doing or not doing, right? So it helped us kind of start from an even playing field of like, let's just talk about the reality of what things are right now without any like finger pointing or blaming or any of that. Number 3, create a new shared vision for your family and how each of you is going to contribute in executing this vision. When you talk to your partner, team up to create a new way forward that works better for your family, one that helps you share the load a bit. Talk about your goals for yourselves and your children. What do you want them to see about what it means to be in a healthy partnership with someone and how to take care of your family? Then think about the kinds of tasks you do that you'd love help with. Nothing is too small here. This is where good communication comes in. Eve Rodsky talked about how writing these kinds of tasks onto index cards and literally dividing them between you can be helpful. Anything you can do to decide X is in charge of this, Y is in charge of that, the better you'll start to feel. Because if both of you wait until the morning to figure out who's going to take the dog out, that doesn't really help anybody. That just leads to resentment when you feel like it's always on you because it's expected to be on you. Number 4, let go of perfect, or at least how you'd do it, and trust your partner to get the job done. Listen, trusting your partner here is huge. As a classic overfunctioner, this is my struggle. If something isn't done the way I would do it, sometimes my first impulse is to say, no, do it like this. But guess what? My way isn't the right way. It's just one way to do it. Trust your partner is an adult who can do what is asked of them. And when they step into this new area, praise them for their effort and thank them. And here's a piece of advice. Take it or leave it. Only offer feedback if they ask for it. Only offer feedback if it's necessary for the health and safety of your children. Otherwise, maybe just let it go. Number 5, keep flexing according to what your family needs. There's no exact science here. Every so often, maybe once a month or quarter, check in with yourself to see how your mental health is doing. Check in with your partner to see how they're doing with their new responsibilities. Adjust if you need to. Allow yourself this flexibility so that you can stay positive and working together as a team. Okay, you guys, I know this one doesn't feel so simple, and neither does the solution, but little by little, you can change your family's culture, and you can model a relationship for your kids that shows what it's like for both parents to be engaged in the flourishing of your family. Your partner gets to feel the joy of meeting the physical and emotional needs of their children, and you get to rest in the satisfaction of having a family that feels a little more whole and more room to take a nap, which, let's be honest, is always a delight. As we close out this episode, I'd like to say a little blessing over you as we leave this time together and get back to our days. When you're overwhelmed, I hope you'll ask for help. Honor yourself and what you need as you care for others. It is a marathon, not a sprint. Remember that what works for someone else's family may not work for yours, and that's more than okay. Your job is to honor yourself. As always, I like to leave a little tip to help you put what we learned this week into practice. So here's what I've got for you. If you don't have one already, set up a shared family calendar. If you divvy up responsibilities, this will make it easier to see what the priorities are for your family and make it easier to communicate if your partner becomes the point person for, say, the orthodontist appointments or carpooling your daughter to cheer practice. Thank you for listening to the Simplified podcast. You can find show notes for this episode at emilylay.com/podcast, where you can check out links and resources I mentioned here. And you can shop the Simplified brand of planners and products. You can follow me on Instagram at Emily Lay and our brand at Simplified. Read essays from me over at emilylay.substack.com. And you can also find my latest book called Sure as the Sunrise right now wherever you buy books. And hey, if you want these kind of great conversations in your life every week, you should go follow our show. It'll just show up right in your phone. Talk about automated. Till next time, thanks for listening. Bye.